about me, a little bit about me. I've been a psychotherapist for about 20 years. And um, through that, through my own process, my own transition in my life and all of the things that I've been through my journey, I've been divorced and reinvented myself many times. So yeah, I really learned, like, going through my own transformation process, what it took to really get to the other side, like how to actually go through change and then transform in the process, not just like be reactionary to the process of like things that happen, because so much of our life happens out of our control, much of it, right?
That's
And
true.
so right, we're experiencing that on a global level right now.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
really taking that process that I honed just like in my own personal journey, and then what I've witnessed with my clients, and how we really change. And so much of us, right, we resist change because change feels scary, it feels uncomfortable, it feels daunting. The unknown is like that place where we feel and we're hardwired for survival and that security feeling. So how I could take that my own process and transform that with my clients and show them through a journey. So I really started doing more coaching with that. And the spiritual part is just my own evolution through my own spiritual journey
Okay.
and my own, enlightenment, you could say. And I'm, just like feel I'm still tapping into that. And it's such beautiful. So really combining those two, the spirituality with the psychotherapy and helping women turn their transition into a transformation, right? Because the transition part is the hard part. We could go through something and get on the other side, and then it's like, now what? So I had to step into that.
Can you
And
please tell me what are the major problems that the woman over 50 face today?
oh wow, yes, I mean, so many things, right? We get to stages in our life. Maybe I think the biggest thing is like perhaps what we thought life would be like when we got to this. Maybe we watched our parents, like my mom was an older woman, and like when she was 50, right? We thought 50 was old. Like, like
Oh my
50,
gosh, yes.
I, we were like 50, wow, you're ancient at 50. And now I'm like, wow,
That's true.
I feel like I'm just getting started. I'm just getting the hang of this game called life. I'm just sort of like really tapping into
Really? Yes.
my own like really ability to play to play the game bigger, right? Like to play it to my advantage, to really. So I think that is really like for women who've gone through things where we thought our life maybe a marriage, maybe you got divorced and you found yourself divorced, or maybe when your kids left you didn't have purpose, or when your job you don't love and have passion for something that you maybe once did. So I think that 50s, that age, is really a very pivotal transition period in our life, because I think we start to really discover who we
Mhm.
are, who we want to be, right? Because maybe our bodies don't work the way they are used to, or maybe they don't look the way they used to.
Oh,
And so we start to like the essence of like energy towards like time, like how much time do I like, I feel like this urgency to sort of like get what I want done. Does that make sense? Where I feel like
definitely.
there's a process where all of a sudden you felt like you had all this time in the world, and now you're sort of like on the other half and you're like, wait a minute, I have so much more to do. So yeah, I
I
think
know, but I also have impression like, most of women after 50 decide really to make these big steps in their lives, to make really like, something that was waiting for so long time,
Mhm.
suddenly that everything wake up again.
Yes.
And I really have impression that this 50 years plus generation, they're so powerful and they're moving so fast. They became
Mhm.
really transparent and they're present. What do you think about it, about the latest movement, also through social media?
Oh, I think it's beautiful. I think we focus so much before like on youth and beauty and like vitality, but like women, we have when this energy of being in this space of 50s, 60s, 70s, like we're so vibrant because we've been through so much. We are very resilient, right? We have the confidence, we have the clarity that we can move through things and get to the other side. Well, when you're young and you have an issue, you're kind of like think your whole life is falling apart, and not that that doesn't happen, but you've been through enough at this stage of your life that you can see um, just having more clarity, and I feel like more confidence being who I am, not what the world thinks I should be, right? So I think it's beautiful now women are, you know, whether it's like letting ourselves just be in our natural, most authentic state, or showing up in whatever, wearing whatever you want, just being as vibrant as possible, because that's when you really shine. When you're your truest self is when your light shines, and it doesn't matter that you have to have like, the perfect whatever. We're so focused. For me, it was like more of a, when I was younger, it was more of an outside in game, like
Mhm.
focused on the outside, my appearance, and now it's more of an inside out game, like focusing on my internal world, my responses, my reactions, what's going on internally. So I think it's just like flipping that script, and I think it's beautiful. Women, we have so much to offer the world, our wisdom.
Oh, thank you so much. And you have spent decades doing therapy and coaching with women in their 50s. And what did you notice the most? What is the best way of learning doing this transition that you're coaching, by the way, in your program?
Mm. Well, I think
Is it
everybody learns
difficult?
different.
Is it difficult to make the change from transform? I mean, from transition to transformation.
Well, it's as difficult as we want to make it, right? Everything is right. I think one of my favorite quotes is change doesn't take time, it takes courage.
Mhm.
And it's so true, because you can exponentially like collapse time. It's like, time that we think in linear time, like, oh, it takes so long to get to this stage, right? We're always like, well, you're in infant stage, then you go to, toddler, then you go through these like, but when you're older, it's like you can kind of all collapse time in the sense that you have the ability to move through things faster. So it's as quick as you want it to be, right? Like I say, you could rip the band-aid off really quick, or you could peel it off really slow, and
Wow.
it's a little more painful that way, right? But when you really like learn to step in to the uncomfortable, right? Because these are uncomfortable things that we tend to face, because it's the trauma that we've held on to, trauma from our childhood, trauma from other things that have happened in our lives. And what happens is most of us, myself included, avoid, right? We avoid the uncomfortable, and we want to just gravitate, because we're beings, we want to seek pleasure or seek joy or seek pain. But when we don't go through the pain, then we're always sort of like, I always say, like, people kind of go around it, and then they're sort of find themselves end up back in the same place and wonder why. Maybe got divorced and you ended up marrying somebody else, and you find yourself
Mm.
like, this seems familiar. This relationship is like the same, because nothing changed from
Nothing
within.
changed inside.
Right?
Yeah.
We're going to attract the same things in our life, whether that
Mhm.
be people, relationships, whatever that may be. If we don't inherently change the mechanisms from what we attract that thing from, right? We're all vibrational, right? So we're all vibrational energy. And if our world we feel like our world keeps attracting certain circumstances in our life, like maybe um, abusive relationships or toxic people or negativity, it's like, it's not that the world it's just showing up how you're showing up, right? It's a mirror reflection of what you're experiencing. So so once we kind of acknowledge that we are the masters creator of our own realities, that we create what we see in the world, then we have the opportunity to recognize like how powerful we really are. If I create my universe and my reality and my whole thing, like, I'm a super powerful being. Like, how beautiful is that? So um I think it's once we get those concepts and we get those ideas, like the quicker we can move through that. And I think sometimes being what I say, at a certain age, right, we're all conditioned, right, to believe certain things, right? So my beliefs are a product of my environment growing up, my teachers, my parents, everybody who influenced me. And so now for me, I get to be in choice of what do I believe. I feel like the first part of my life was learning everything everybody wanted me to learn. And now my second half is going to be unlearning all those things and plugging in what I want to learn and believe about life. So those can be the biggest challenges, I think, with people of any age. I see it with everybody, right? The resistance to like let go of these concepts that have been so programmed in our minds of how what being human is like, and change is hard, and life is hard, and
Mm.
making money is, money to all these like little things that we've heard, we believe. And so when we can kind of step out of them and like have less attachment to that, then we can move through things quicker. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I love it. I could listen to you for an hour. It's really wow. But you like to talk about energy, and I really feel like, even when someone just come into the room, I feel
Mhm,
that kind of energy that the person brings with him or with her.
mhm,
And
mhm.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we women, especially, we feel it maybe more or more sensitive than men. Um, Tell me about money. Money has to be energy too. It's energy definitely, like,
Mhm,
and women
absolutely.
fight mostly to transform this energy to make it positive for them. Do you have any advice for the women that are just starting the business or want to
Mhm,
start from new or something, like, is it difficult to change that energy
mhm.
and to make it profitable or like useful for yourself?
Sure, yeah. Well, we all have a money story, right? Where we grew up around whatever that is. Like, how again, these just concepts that are out there in the ethers, like money doesn't grow on a tree and it's hard to make money and like only rich people make, so it's just like it's really like I said, I think a process of figuring out like what is your money story. So write it out. Like what was your experience growing up with money, right? How did your parents handle money? Did they talk about money? Did you think money was, like did they hand you money? Did they tell you no, you have to work hard for money, right? So recognizing what were those key things that were shared with you about money, right? Like um my mom always like told me like I don't have money, and so it was like that was really like I started to notice that later. I don't have money, but like she'd spend money or do whatever, and I recognized later on like how I just adopted those same beliefs just by being around that, right? So I had to really examine my own beliefs about money and how much money could I not how much money could I attain. This is the difference that was really key for me, is how much money can I energetically hold, right? If I say I want $1 million, right? Like I want to make $1 million in this year. And do I have the body, the energetic capacity to actually hold $1 million? Because if I don't believe I can actually earn $1 million, then and it doesn't have to be like, is it going to be hard or do I have to earn it hard? It's like money can come to me in many different ways, right? If it's an energetic, how do I attract money? What is abundance? Abundance is everywhere in our life. And so start to pay attention to that. Like, um, now if I see a penny on the ground, instead of going, oh, it's just a penny, I'm like, it's a penny, it's a sign I'm a more abundant than I was, right? So energetically I'm appreciating what I have, so being in appreciation for what we already have and how abundant we already are, abundant in our health, abundant in our relationships, our friendships, and then more abundance will flow to you. So when you speak like frequency, the example that I love to use, because I think we can all rate, we all have a smartphone, right? We all have a smart whatever. And we don't have hesitate to say, oh, I could pick you up and you're in Germany and I could call you and we would be speaking just like we are, through the computer. And that seems to be totally fine. We can all get that, but it's the same way. It's an energetic of like attraction to money. So say there's, like the radio station and there's a satellite out in the space somewhere, and I get in my car and I want to listen to whatever station it is, but I'm not quite on the right station. You get the static and the sound comes in, it doesn't come in like clear. So are you tuned to the frequency of what you want to attract, whether that's more money, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a beautiful home or a thriving business, right? Am I tuned to the correct frequency? Meaning, can I embody and like vision myself stepping into that before it's already happened? Right? Like you can see, like you have to like literally believe that you are a multimillionaire before you can actually hold $1 million, multi-millions of dollars.
Tell me about fine tuning, how to position your arrows. Like, I mean, that's really very fine and sensitive tool.
Yeah, it's like anything else in life. It's practice, right? It's fine tuning. It's noticing where I'm off, noticing where I'm like, maybe I'm feeling scarce, like, oh gosh, I don't have enough money to pay my bills this month, or oh, what, like noticing where I'm not in tune with the abundance of life. Like abundance is all around, when I started to just listen to the sounds of the birds, and like the ocean is flowing and coming in and out. Like we're always in constant like motion, and there's abundance all around. Like there's beautiful flowers, or so like being in appreciation, and then noticing when I
Yeah.
feel like I don't have enough. Like, oh gosh, I need to pay XY bill and I don't have enough money for that. So then I'm in scarcity, I'm feeling lack, I'm feeling afraid, instead of like, yeah, that's, I know it's a harder concept to be like, oh yeah, that's going to get taken care of. It's like, I'm open to receiving money in unexpected ways. So you can like, it's just a practice. It's like, it's getting really fine tuned, just like everything else we do. Like to build a muscle, we go to the gym and we work out, or we do whatever exercise, because we're building that muscle because we want, whatever result it is. It's the same way with anything else in life. You have to do certain rituals and practices in order to fine tune your craft. It's not like I can just be like, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire and poof, poof. It's like I practice, I embody it. And then like I
Mhm.
start to notice, I start to go, oh, I can see how I'm like generating opportunities to speak or to be in front of other audiences, or to, so that's abundance as well, right? It's not always coming in the form of dollars or pound or whatever your currency is.
I love also your sentence when you said, I choose me. And
Mm,
I always choose me. And tell me a little bit about it. You always say how important is the most important relationship is the relationship with yourself. Tell us a
hmm.
little bit about it.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that was a big one for me, right? Because I think as women, we're conditioned and trained to be selfless, to be givers. We're nurturers typically, right? We're mothers, or in some way form caretakers, and always feeling like that's selfish to put ourselves first, or we're not, be the good girl, be the nice girl, be the helpful girl, be the whatever. So really putting others first is sort of how we're taught, right? As
Yes.
that's the selflessness of being a woman. um but it's that same thing where it's like, if I'm not caring for myself, I am not of like a ability my ability to care for others is less, right? Like filling your cup up, or being happy, or giving from the overflow. Where I had that realization. I was in the stage after like I got divorced, like I'm taking care of my kids, I'm like working in my business, and then I was like caring for my aging mother, and I'm like doing all these things, and I'm like, I have nothing left to give. I was like, I'm tapped out. I'm tapped out.
I
You
hear
know,
you.
I was just depleting myself and depleting my resources and not really filling them up, just maybe like a little bit here or there. And so when I really started to put myself first, meaning, what do I want? Like, what lights me up? What makes me feel like with joy? And that could just be a walk, that could be exercising, that could be, making a beautiful meal, or spending some time with a friend. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I choose me and like I'm leaving you the others behind. But it was really like, what is the fullest expression of myself, my soul calling me towards? Like, what lights me up? Like, what excites me? And I asked myself that on a regular basis, because the answer could be different. So choosing yourself means being in the energy of what lights you up, because then when you energetically have more to give other people.
Are you a friend of journaling?
I recommend it. I struggle with it. I will be the first to admit I struggle with it, because it's like you're staring at a blank page. So I find that I do it more so when I'm inspired, but I also find journal prompts really helpful, or doing exercises. So even sometimes just like, it's like anything else, right? It's like going to the gym. Like I don't feel like working out, but I know I feel better afterwards. So I kind of will set aside time and say, okay, like let's just do it for 5 minutes. And if 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden like you're into it and you're writing. But it's really convincing, you're like getting past those resistance, because is the ego's job is to keep you safe, right? So if
Yeah.
I journal, I might, oh, well, if I journal, I might bring up some uncomfortable emotions, and then I might get, sad today, and I might just be, so you know what? My ego's like, no, 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 don't do that. Don't do that today, because we don't want to change, because that's what it's, right? It's the resistance. So when you hit that resistance, it's almost like a sign to keep going. I always like go, oh, okay, that means like I need to do this, as opposed to like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to watch a movie, or I'm just going to chill, or I'm going to do something else to distract myself. So I really kind of trained myself to do the uncomfortable thing, because I know that that's where the growth will happen. I
Mhm.
don't want to do it, but that's why I find accountability helps with that. Having somebody to, assist you, because most of the time we won't do it, really, to be honest. Let's face it. We won't do the uncomfortable thing unless we
I,
have a little like, nudge.
yeah, I already asked you about it, and I know you're a prof in it. I know you're very good in meditating and meditation, and like you're a spiritual teacher, a spiritual therapist. Tell me how is important that way in reaching yourself, in finding yourself in this
Mhm.
process of transformation.
Yes. Beautiful. Yes, I resisted meditation for a long time. I wouldn't say, I, I don't want to say I'm not good at it, because there's really no good or bad, right? To be honest with you, like if you could sit quietly for 5 minutes, you're crushing it, right? You're doing great. Like we judge things because it needs to be perfect. But how do we get better at anything? Is just be quiet for like 2 or 3 minutes in the morning before the day gets going, just listening to yourself. And really, if you think about it, meditation is just plugging back into you, connecting, and then connecting with source. And I look at it, the way that helped me was looking at God, source, spirit, whatever you want to, whatever is your choice term to use, is it's developing a relationship. And the only way we can develop a relationship with spirit, with God, with the universe, is to really be quiet. So I look at it that way. I'm like, I'm choosing to be in relation with my higher self, with spirit. And the only way I can do that is when my mind is kind of quiet. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I gotta go to the grocery store, and then I gotta pick up my kids, and I gotta do this. And then I'm like, so I think the biggest thing about meditation is just practice it, just try it. There's plenty of like Insight Timer is a beautiful app. You can do guided meditations to start, and then try to just like quietly, like this morning, like spirit will wake me up in the middle of the night. And then like this morning I was like, I got up and I grabbed and I like started writing some notes, because I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want to forget that. Because it's really when our consciousness is quiet, can those messages, because we're always in communicate, the divine is always in communication with us. It's just, are we allow it? Are we, again, is that tuner open? Is my ability to receive the information available, right? They're always wanting to communicate with us, and we have to invite them. They can't, in spirit is not, they have to be invited, so to intervene, because we have free will. So it's like I invite spirit into my dream world. I invite in my meditation, I'll pick a particular deity or energy I want to work with. I've been working with Mother Mary lately, so I just say, Mother Mary, who loves me unconditionally, come be with me now. And then sit with that quietly. And then just, you can kind of feel, like for me, when I feel spirit come in, it's like an energetic, like a tingling in my body, like I'll start to
Wow.
feel it in my crown. And so you start to list, just like in relationship, you learn how Mother Mary is. And Mother Mary is like gentle, and she's loving, and she loves you unconditionally. And so you start to feel the energy. So when you work with different energies, you start to get to know them, just like you would in a relationship. Like, what do they like? How do they communicate? And the only way we can do that is when we're quiet. So that's really the reason that meditation is, the quickest way to get to know yourself, right? Is like the only way.
Beautiful. I know
Yeah.
I get the best and the craziest idea when I sometimes wake up in the night and I'm
Mhm.
just peaceful and laying there, and I'm so creative, and especially like you're still kind of peaceful and
Mhm.
quiet, but this mind, it's simply blowing, like with new ideas, with good
Mhm.
ideas. And
Mhm.
it's really a pity when I wake up and don't write it, like that's kind of meditation. It's not really that what you said, but sometimes really I'm not upset spending that time being awake and not sleeping
Mhm.
in my bed, so
Mhm.
it's a good
Mhm.
quality time.
Yeah. That's a beautiful reminder though. Like even keeping a book by your bed, it's hard, right? Because you don't want to turn the light on. But even if you just are inspired to do that, because So what's happening is like our brain goes into has different wavelengths, right? We have delta is our waking state, and theta is when we're sort of like going into that sleeping, like, where consciousness is slipping into like the subconscious. And that is the time you can really reprogram your brain. And so in those, like I always say, like right before you fall asleep is a great time to meditate, and you can actually start to program, like I will say, like what you want to happen, say the next day. So when you're talking about manifesting, you can say, tomorrow I'm going to wake with, full of energy and creativity and, the insights that I need in order to propel my business. So you can kind of like implant that, right? Like it look like our computers, like think about it. It's like, oh, what program do I want to run? Okay, I want to run motivation, creativity. Okay, boom. And then you can like implant that. And so then for the next 8 hours, however long you're sleeping, that is what your subconscious mind will start to run that program. And then eventually you'll start to see those results, right? So it's like the same thing. It's like, what program do I want to run? Do I want to run, negativity, doubt, scarcity, unhappiness, or do I want to start plugging in these new programs? Like look at think about it. Our brain is this magnificent supercomputer, and we don't even know how to operate it, right? We only use like 3 to 5% of the capacity of our brain. So think about, wow, like even if I just did it like a little bit more, like how transformational that could be. Because our waking state, we think somewhere upwards of 70,000 thoughts a day. And most of those thoughts are the same thoughts we've had over and over and over again throughout our lifetime, right? The repetitive thoughts of like, oh, I don't have this. So once you start to pay attention to what are those thoughts that I'm repeating on repeat, because that's what's showing up in your life, because that's what you're telling your brain. You're saying like, okay, this is what's going to happen. And so once you start to switch that program, then you will see the results that you want to.
I love it. Oh, so increasing, really amazing, incredible, inspiring. I also notice when I wake up, when I really take that 10, 15 minutes to get up before everyone else get up, like, my kids, my husband. And when I take these 10, 15 minutes for myself to sit there, to think, to even to drink my tea, like, just to prepare for the day, I build up different energy. I'm positive, I'm easy, I'm peaceful, I'm happy, I'm really open for everything that comes. It's really true. Like, it's possible. I think I will do even more programming. Bam.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, do it. Let me know how it goes. Yeah.
Woman support woman, and you support also woman. That's also your profession. You're really good in it. And what do you think that becomes the greatest obstacle for a woman over 50? I mean, we hear always like, women have really big troubles to start again, like, to find new job, or especially after 50s. But what would you say, what is the biggest obstacle for a woman over 50, even 60?
I mean, what popped into my mind is just really like community, right? Like a like-minded community, and finding other people that are going through similar transitions, right? So a lot of times women, we get to 50, we've raised our kids, or we're still raising kids, and we've lost touch with friendships, or we've, changed things, or whether you got, maybe there was a divorce and you lost friends that way, right? So we sort of become disconnected from a larger community. And so when that way it's I feel like it's sometimes more challenging to make friends, and to feel comfortable like stepping out of it. I love putting myself in those situations, and like I met your sister at like a business mastermind, and it was beautiful, and like meeting new people, and always just oh my gosh, yeah. But I know that that's not always comfortable for people. But I've made friends on Instagram where I'd be like, oh, I saw you were in, but like let's meet for lunch, and I've made beautiful friendships that way. But I'm sort of like, I'm an introvert, but I can be an extrovert if like need be, because I want to be in a community. I want to be with other people. And that's how we used to live, right? Like the women all used to gather, and, they were preparing food and what was taking care of the kids. Like, I want to live that way. I think that's the beauty. That's how we we utilize our we resource each other, because you're good at certain things and I'm good at certain things, and another woman is really powerful at other things. So if we can all come together with our resources, then what could we create together, right? Like what you guys are doing with this beautiful community, Aging But Dangerous, is like, what if we pull, like, I mean, how amazing. I always say that women, I do believe that we would rule the world. That's why the patriarchy has kept us down for so long, because like if we realize like how powerful we are, we would be like, heck no. I mean, we are the birthers of life, the portal that the divine comes through. And if we all get together, like, game on, because we are more powerful together. So I think being comfortable to step out and make friends, be vulnerable is a challenge, I think, because I think women have a tendency to hold on to a lot of pain, thinking that is, I did this for a long time, like that was my badge of honor. Like I've been through like some really tough things, and like I'm strong, I'm tough, I'm beautiful. But when I started to like just be more vulnerable and transparent, people started to like connect with me more, because I'm being more authentic. I'm not saying like I've got it all figured out, because like I don't. There's
Or
none
asking
of
for
it.
help. Am I right?
Asking for help, beautiful. Yeah, no, I was gonna say definitely. I really struggled with asking for help, because again, we want to be like, no, I got it, I can do that. But why? When what's better when, like, let's all do what we're good at.
Oh my gosh. I wish even more. I try, we're gonna reach really a ton of women outside, because this is amazing what you just said. Just let us come all together, and that's really beautiful process, and we're really so incredibly strong, supporting each other. And I always
Mhm.
feel this energy, like, change. And but tell me a little bit about women that think that they are too old to start new transformation or
Mhm.
first transition. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, sure. I think it's, just like a lot of the things that we talked about. Like, we're never too old, because at any given stage of our life, right? Like, we're human beings. We are so adaptable. We are so like resilient. It's like change is actually the only thing you can count on, right? Like, so when you recognize like we're always in the process of transformation, that it's like, oh, what's available? Instead, like, it's kind of like asking different questions. So instead of like what I can't do, like what's available for me? Like, when I walk around, and I know when like people, it's like people respect women who are, right, like there's a respect there, like, ma'am, or polite, or so, like I'm like, how can I use like my age to my advantage, as opposed to like a weakness, right? Like, oh, I'm old, no, I'm inconsequential, nobody cares because I'm not, right? No, it's like I have value just because I've lived, a lot of life. And so when I think it's just that same thing, like those mind shifts, like little shifts in your mindset, like you're typically in your 50s, definitely 60s, you raised your kids, you don't have anybody else. It's like, this is my time. Like, this is
Yeah.
it, right? Like,
And
I
I
can
have
do whatever,
muscles.
like I can do whatever I want. My kids are still teenagers, so I'm still raising children, but for a lot of it, because I have my own business, so it's like, what, like, again, going back to that, what I said before, like what lights me up, like figure out that maybe it's, doing a yoga class, starting something, and then getting to know yourself, so you get to know what you like again, because what you liked when you were, what I liked when I was 20, 30, 40 is so very different than what I like now. I'm finding I need a lot less, like I need less stuff. I
Mhm.
need less people. I want really just like quality, like my energy. I want to conserve my energy for, I used to just give it away to everybody, and realize like that's my gift, right? Like being in my energy, it's not just that, like being around me is my gift, because I've worked on like raising my frequency to the point where it's like, and I say that not with vanity, but with knowing my power, like that I've stepped into knowing that is what I've come here for, right? So when you start to just call in a different energy, so if you're feeling like, oh, I'm too old to do something, it's like, oh wait, I have already done, like, look back at your life and be like, what have you already gone through? You could help some woman who's been through something similar, right? Because that's how the elders, like think in a tribe, used to teach the younger versions. They taught from their experience, not from their knowledge, right? It's from my experience. It's not like, oh, because I'm a therapist, I know, right? It's like now I really am teaching more from an experience, from an experiential place. So what could you teach somebody? What could you offer? What could you be in service of, right? Like, so like being in service of the next generations, or like not just your children, but like, yeah. So when you're thinking about it, for me, like I'm not changing myself just for me. I'm changing myself for my children, for the next generation, for even my ancestors, for the generations, you know, before me, because that is what I came here. So when you think about it, it's kind of selfish not to. And if you want to really, if I'm honest with you, it's like staying the same is not in service to anyone else, right? I mean, definitely to yourself, because most likely it's uncomfortable. Like if you're afraid, or you're feeling like you don't have the confidence to start something anew. Yeah.
Beautiful. You're talking a lot about self-love, self-confidence, I would say also. Um,
Mhm.
Tell me how relevant is self-love in this later state of your life.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think it's everything, and I know that there's a lot of, right, we sort of throw that term out, self-love, and I think it's interesting because you know, a lot of people like, what is self-love, right? Like, oh, I love myself. I could say before, like, I liked myself, or I thought I was cool, or you know, but really loving yourself is is an interesting process, right? And I think it is so important to really dive into that, like having compassion for yourself where you are in this moment, not when I get something, or like when I figure, oh, when I get to the next stage, then I'll work on that, right? Like that's again going back to what I said before, the outside in game, where it's like I love myself for who I am, all the mistakes that I've made, and like I've made many of them, and I'm grateful for all of them because they've brought me to this place. Everything in my life has been that step that I needed in order to really propel me to, again, for me, what is my purpose? What is that purpose that has led me to this place right now, and how that's going to continue to unfold? So when you really are like, self-love is again going back to that thing, like what lights me up, like what makes me happy, what brings me joy. um you know, so it's really encompassing, I think, what we have already spoken into some, you know, on this call, is that all of those things combined are self-love, right? Like it's the compassion, it's the forgiveness, it's really being with those, like even the uncomfortable emotions, like the darker, we can't always just, you know, have the love and the light. We've got to like address the shadow. So um it's caring for yourself, it's being kind and compassionate, just like we treat other people, right? It's sort of like, how would you treat a friend who was going through a difficult problem, instead of saying like, ah, you're such an idiot, you shouldn't have done that, XYZ, whatever you did, right? It's like, you know, okay, there's a lesson here, or what could we have done better, or what are we going to do next time, or how you, you know, it's about how you speak to yourself. It's about how you nurture yourself. All of it, right? Self-care is a part of it. Do you take care of your physical body? Do you nurture yourself with good food? Do you treat yourself with reverence? Do you, you know, really being able to like be in this humanness, because it's all of it, right? The humanness is all of the different levels of and ranges of emotions, and really just be able to be like, yeah, you know, looking in the mirror and like not just seeing the physical aspects of you, but like seeing inside, and like knowing that, like, you know, your heart,
Oh,
yeah. So
Hillary, I'm really curious. How do you deal with stress? Please tell me. How do you
yeah,
deal with stress? You're so smiley, chirpy person. I have really impression like, you know, you're so fine. But tell me, probably you have stress too.
oh, of course. Yeah, I have two teenage boys. Of course I do. So, yeah, that's stress is such an important, right? Like, well, the breath, right? Like the breath is
Oh,
very important, right? So your breath controls your nervous system, your heart rate. So when I feel anxious, like then again, it's like just being able to just take 5 deep breaths, or just like start to settle my nervous system. Because for most of us, I say, um, especially this especially this past year and this part of this year, our nervous systems are in that sympathetic, that fight or flight all the time, right? So we're bombarded with things like, you know, messages coming in into, like, think about it, like the control center, our brain, right? Like, so we're trying to like filter out all of these different things. Like, what should I pay attention to? So
Focus.
for me, like controlling my stress, I made my world much smaller. I don't, I mean, I don't watch TV. Um, because I don't like, again, that energy, I don't want to be in that energy. So I'm really like cautious of like where I spend my time, what I'm looking at, what I'm viewing, what I'm ingesting. So look at it, information, I'm ingesting information. So it's kind of like, what is going to serve me? Like what do I like, what is the absolute do I need to know? Right? I figure that they're going to tell me something. If I need to know it, I will find out. Um, so I'm, again, I controlling my environment as best I can, which suits me. Like I moved, like I have my environment the way that I want. So when I wake up in the morning, like I'm happy to greet the day. So knowing that situations are going to come. So meditation for me is, you know, is a part of it too, like spending that time in the morning before everybody wakes up. Like you said, setting an intention for the day, like how do I want to show up? What is going to serve me, knowing that yes, things are going to happen, and but I can always go back to that center, if it's a word, if it's compassion, or if it's grace, or, and then I'm just like, oh yeah, I have a, so my older son has special needs, he has autism and cerebral palsy, and he's such a beautiful, and I lived much of my life in stress, especially when he was younger, and
But
he's had
now
a
he's
really,
your biggest teacher. You always say that.
oh
You
my
learn.
God,
Oh,
yes.
it's
He is
amazing.
really, Dean is actually, he just is love. Like if you ever want, like you just need to be around Dean, because he just is he is love. And so he is a reminder to me, if I don't yell like, but if I raise my voice, if I'm frustrated, like we're gonna get ready for the bus is coming, you know, and I could feel my energy starting to get like, and then he's like, he'll just be like, don't be mad. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Okay, so can you help me? Can you hurry up? Like I need you to like do XYZ so we can get on the bus. But it's right, it's those reminders. It's like setting yourself up for success, knowing that like, or do you operate better if like the lunches are packed, or if you have a schedule, or if you're, you know, doing that. And I also started, there's a beautiful app called the Mindfulness Bell. So I'll set reminders for myself throughout the day where it will, like the alarm will go, you know, like ding, and it's just a check-in, like, okay, like let's go back to that, because right, like once the day starts, it's kind of like we're off to the races, and then, you know, and then by the end of the day, we all come home and we're like, okay, I did it, I made it, like, right, and then we do whatever we do to maybe decompress, whatever, and then we
What's
start that
that
all over
app? That app reminds you to go back. Like, it's kind of.
so yeah, I'll share with you. It's called the Mindfulness Bell, and you can program it at like certain hours of the day, like every hour maybe, even if you want to start to it. And it's just sort of like, you know, what am I paying attention to? What am I tuning into? And you can,
Wow.
you know, if you have meetings or calls or things like that, you can silence it. But it's a beautiful way to just like, oh yeah, like bring us back to center, bring us back to that place
Oh,
where
that's
we,
so important.
yeah, because right, like we go off and then like the day happens and then you come home and you're just like, okay, and then we just get up and do it all again. So one of the things that I like to do also is clear my energy. So a practice that you can do that's super simple is, especially like when if you're at work, say you go to a workspace, or even if you're on the computer all day or whatever you're doing, if you're around people, you just, and I do this before I go to bed, and like I just say, I clear my energy, like anything that is not my own, and then I call all my own energy back to me. So I just sort of, you can do this in the shower is a good way to do it too. So you can just feel like you're just washing the energy, because we're always taking on other people's energetics, right? So
So
think of it,
true.
we're like, we're these sponge. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna like, I kind of just make, you know, and you can even just sort of like, you know, clear your energy this way. You could do it with like sage, but just sort of like, even if you're just saying that as I lay in bed, I'm just like, you know, I release any energy that's not my own, and then I call all my energy back to me, because we leak it throughout the day. So that can be stressful too. So like resourcing your own energy back to you, like where are you leaking your energy? So those are just like some of, you know, a couple little things, because it is important. Stress is right, when our bodies are in that stress response, it creates dis-ease, right? So this is what leads to things that like complications or having health problems, because your body is not in harmony. Your nervous system isn't stabilized. And so that's what creates things that people are, all these different, your immune system is compromised. You're more susceptible to, illness. So if you really, being able to calm, like the vagus nerve is very important in order, that's like that is like what is our stress response. Is like if you can really start to tap into it, and I could go more into that, maybe that's something I could share in the community,
Well,
like
please, definitely.
I could go on and on about that too.
Oh my gosh, that's really something I would personally love to learn. That's something that Yasna and I, we're really like on the same level, and that's the energy that we feel and we like to share with people around us.
Yeah.
Please tell me, sometimes it's very important to clean your energy, as you said, but also it's important to cut some people and this toxic thing from your life. You did
Absolutely.
it several times, every one of us probably too. Do you have any recommendation, any tips for people that are fighting with it, to cut people, to cut that toxic thing from their life?
Yeah. Yeah, that's another big topic, because there's so many layers to that. But to just kind of speak into that like briefly, I would say, if you struggle, right, like having toxic relationships, and it's harder, maybe if it's a family member, right, to just cut them off. But maybe starting with just a beautiful practice. It's pretty simple, but hard to do sometimes, is say no, right? But the
Not
hardest
easy.
thing is say, right? Like, so if you have let's use the example of maybe like a friend who's toxic. Like every time you get around them, maybe they gossip, or they're just drain your energy, or they're just really negative, and you're starting to notice, because like what will happen is, like, as you start to like raise your vibration and you start to live more in that, like you start to like, I can't really be around people who are super negative, right? Because that like drains my energy. So say, use that as an example. If you start to notice people or coworkers or something like that, maybe there's a coworker that's always trying to get you, and then they get you in this conversation, and you leave and you're like, oh God, now I feel like I'm in a bad mood. So practice saying no, right? Like, here's an exercise that we just did, like say no 20 times to people, and don't tell them why you're saying no. Do you want to go to coffee? No, I don't. Can you, if your husband's like, can you, like, you can do it. It's like, can you hand me that? No. Because it's hard, because we're like, no, I can't do it because I'm practicing self-care or whatever. But like, no, I can't go to coffee with you because I have to do X, Y, Z. No, I don't want to go. No.
Oh, I love it.
So, right, like that's like setting your boundaries, is just like, no, I can't. No. And then they're going to get mad, right? And then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I have to like tell them why. They just like, but when you start to set boundaries with people, then they will start to like, sometimes they're going to like push a little bit more, but then you start to, again, just like go, no, where do I want to spend my energy? And you'll start to recognize, again, those little things. So you can also that's a great journaling exercise. Write people letters. You don't have to send them. You don't have to tell them, but it's a way to express your emotions and get that energy out, so you're not holding on to it. Or, and figuring out, again, like just really going back and taking a look at like, okay, if I have a lot of toxic people in my life, what is that, right? Again, going back into the inside, what am I attracting? Why is that? And what is that I need to pay attention to?
Definitely. You also talk about importance of investing in yourself. I'm not talking about material investing in yourself, even that made fun. It's proven, but I'm talking about investing in yourself, learning, developing, and stuff like that. And I know you went that way. How is it important to invest in yourself and to develop?
Oh my gosh. I think it's absolutely essential. I think it's, the putting yourself in rooms where people, and like that's with like Yasna, that are doing the things that you want to do, or learning about the things that you're learning about. So like the first time that I ever did that, like I went to a Tony Robbins 10,000 people event, and I was like, oh my gosh, right, like so amazing. And then that sort of, right, like kind of just got in that energy of like, wow, like because you see like what's available, like there's this whole world kind of opens up. And when you put yourself, when you invest in yourself, you're telling the universe, like, that's like you're saying yes to you. You're like, I'm investing in myself. I'm important. I'm not just buying, a beautiful handbag or shoes, which, don't get me wrong, I love all those things too. But I did that. I spent a lot of that and I wasn't any happier, right? Like that was the outside in game again, like having all nice things or doing that. And at the end of the day, I'm still feeling the same. So when I started investing in myself, I started to notice like my world changed. The people who were in my world changed. The people who I wanted to be around with, I started attracting different people in my world. I mean, I've invested, well over $100,000 in the last few years on like coaches, masterminds, events, things of that nature, in my business as well. Just because, like, again, if you like, who are the people that are doing the things that you want to do? And I want to be around those people. Right. And so and then that really is what set me on the path that I'm on now, is because I've invested in myself, because I see what the potential is. I see a different version of me that's waiting on the other side. Whereas before I was playing a much smaller game. I was playing the game of like, okay, well, like this is okay. I can do this, but it's like, I think it gives you that ability to like literally quantum leap, right? Where, I think a lot of us, I call it my shelf help book, because like I have tons of self-help books like sitting on the shelf, and I have great intentions, like, because somebody will be like, oh, you get that book, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get that book, it's gonna change my life. And then the book, nah, I don't get to the book because I don't do it, because I'm not, personally, sometimes I'm not necessarily motivated to do it. So when I have a coach or somebody I'm accountable to, I show up to the work. So one of the other quotes that I love is like, when you pay attention. So when you pay, I've invested, so I want to receive back what I've invested in myself. I want to receive that information. So I show up to the work, and that's different. Some price points, like somebody, $500 is a lot to show up, right? Because that's a stretch for them. And for somebody else, like maybe $10,000 is a stretch for them, right? Like what's going to get you to show up again to the work? Does that make sense? Like
Definitely.
investing in yourself is showing up to the work. And this is to me, this is the reason we are here. This is the reason we are here, and how we ascend is doing the work. You can't bypass this system. You can choose not to do it. You can opt out and not do it. And, maybe the next lifetime, I believe we all come around, because like, that's what I believe in order to ascend, is to really to transmute, like to move through the trauma, to do the difficult work, to go into the shadow. And it's not easy. And I'm not saying it has to be like where you fall apart, but when you have somebody there to hold space for you and love you through it and nurture you and be that mirror for you, to say, like be your cheerleader until you're good enough to be your own cheerleader, like that's such a beautiful partnership. Like it's such a beautiful partnership.
I really love the feeling that you give me, that you really choose the people that you surround with, and that's so important. I really believe that's so important. I have so many questions for you, but I know we don't have a lot of time. But the one more question what I want to ask you definitely before I say goodbye is, please tell us, what does it mean aging for dangerous for you? Aging but dangerous.
Aging but dangerous. I know, I love that phrase. Yeah. I think, for me, like, it's just really like an unfolding of just being the best version of yourself, like beautifully, like authentically expressing yourself in the most like, divine way that suits whatever that expression is, right? For each individual, it's going to look something different. And that's like I said before, like we each have a unique gift, and to be in full expression of that is like, to me, like aging but dangerous. It's like, I'm going to be the fullest expression of myself that I possibly can, right? And to show up in that way each and every day, even when it's hard, even when I don't feel like it, even when I don't, even when that small self may be like, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. It's like, like I can channel that, like that whole, like that feeling of like aging but like, nope, I'm going to show up. And it's an energetic, right? Like it's energetic of how you show up to the world. Like, I mean, I was looking and going through the community of the women that you've already interviewed and shared, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. Like you could just feel like the energetic of how each woman has like embodied her own personal power and really like taken that to, you know, again, being that fullest expression. Because when you do that, you give the next woman permission, right? If somebody looks at me and says, oh, she can do it, then I can do it. Yes, yes. Like, right. Like if I look at some of the other women, I'm like, oh my gosh, she, you know, did that. I'm like, yes, it's permission. It's like, it's giving ourselves the permission and then sharing that with other people to be like the fullest expression of who we are. So
Oh,
that.
you're so charming and so smart, Hillary. I love. Hey, you had the latest experience. You made the experience with the Russia Scalar Plasma Crystalline Sun Harmonizer.
Oh yeah, wow, that was
Did I say
yeah,
it properly? That's quantum
I think so.
cell
Yeah, they call it
calcium.
the Rasha machine. It was a oh my gosh.
Tell me,
Yeah,
please,
I
a
hate
little
to
bit about
explain it.
it.
It's like it was kind of like an out of the world experience. I'd have to send you a picture of it. It's taking the concepts from Nikolai
Tesla?
Tesla, Royal Rife, and then there was somebody else. The story is and again, correct, like I'm not fully like can't remember the man's name who actually invented this machine, but basically the story that I heard, and if I remember it correctly, was the man who he had a download, right? Like he actually died. He overdosed, and was like you know, with flatlined, and apparently he came back. He had downloaded this information for this machine, and so it does look like it's like a tube, and then it has these like balls of light, and it feels like you're in Back to the Future, right? So you plug it into the machine, and then you listen to these frequencies, you listen to sounds, and it takes you. There was 4 different segments. And then the actual last part, you're literally tapped into consciousness, like pure consciousness. And I thought my head was gonna like literally like explode, like I could feel like my whole crown chakra opening up. So it's working with the base of like frequencies and healing. Again, going back to the concepts we talked about, like energetic. So it's pretty powerful, like
Wow.
this really potent technology that hopefully will be available to more people. I know companies use it and the government even uses it. And so I'm surprised they actually let us have this because there's only, I think, about 50 personal people that have this actual machine. So when I got to go and we have that interview scheduled, I was like, I have to go. I have to experience.
Definitely.
And one thing is I know I'm gonna have my son do it because they said it helps with autism as well. So it's really interesting. Like frequencies are super powerful, and there's so much more to that, and I can share with you in another, you know, time, or share with the community, like when I do the talks in the group, because it's
Oh,
really, yeah,
definitely.
really powerful.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Ew.
You're amazing. I
Oh,
really enjoyed this hour talking to
I
you,
know, it went
and
so fast.
oh, it's beautiful. And we'll definitely stay in touch. Wish you all the best, lots of success with your
Thank
coach
you.
business,
Yeah, thank you.
and we'll follow, like, all new happenings. Thank you so much, dear
Perfect.
Hillary.
Blessings to you
Blessings.
and everybody. Mwah. All right.
Bye.
We'll talk soon. Bye.